Hey guys, welcome back. Today we have this ginormous stack of journals, and we are going to look at some spreads dating all the way back to this journal back in 2015, all the way through to my current journal, which you guys have seen a lot of, so we won't spend a lot of time in this one. Um, I have bullet journaled since long before 2015. But I did lose some journals to mold damage. I wasn't storing them properly, so that's definitely something to pay attention to. If you have these journals and you plan to keep them for a long time, make sure that you're keeping them in a safe and dry space. That was not something I always did. So I'm going to move these more recent journals out of the way a little bit here. And we will take a peek at the older journals and see where we can get to here. So our very first journal that we're going to look at is this 2015, and it just says Becky's schedule down here. The reason is that this particular journal was given to me. It's a company, Mint Green. I did not purchase this journal. I was in school in 2015 for architecture, and the school gave us these to track assignments and appointments and things like that. So this was not a journal that I purchased. This was a journal that was given to me. And in here, I just did kind of your standard. It had these monthly pages, and I just kind of added in, standard things when there was no school, snow days, um, things like that, and just kind of worked through it that way. I did have step counts in here, so at that point I was doing really well on the step counts. But nothing overly fancy, and certainly not really any decoration. At this point, I am using different colors to indicate like financial things that I have to pay or things like that. But for the most part, very, very basic. Same with the weeks. So this is what the weeks looked like in this particular journal. So we have got, just your traditional academic planner. I'm going to call this an academic planner because in an academic planner, you tend to have larger spaces like this for your weekdays, and then you tend to have this kind of stacked weekend. This is great for people who have a lot going on during the week, but not a lot going on the weekend. So if you're using a planner for work or something like that, you might want to think about looking into an academic planner. But again, nothing overly fancy. I am tracking kind of what dinner is and what I need to do for different classes, things like that. But nothing overly decorative in here. And if you have a free journal, I mean, why not use the free journal? I'm not going to go in and spend a bunch of money on a journal when I have a free option at the ready. So then we move into the school's no longer giving us a journal. So this is 2016, and this is the official bullet journal brand of journal. Prior to this, I used Moleskine prior to 2015. But then Bullet Journal came out. They became this new thing, and so they came out with their journal. I used this. I used a lot of different colors. Typically, for this particular journal, I would use the good old-fashioned Papermate Flare pens. I really loved the Papermate Flare pens. But I will show you some issues that I have with them later on. Well, right here. Uh, so they did have a tendency over time to kind of wear through. So this stuff that's here on this page is wearing through to this page. Again, this is over 10 years old here, or about, I shouldn't say that. This is 9 years old. So it's not really a big deal because I can still see everything that I need to, but I am keeping track of kind of my dailies here. So daily events. In this case, I don't think I took my journal with me that weekend. And then, what I need to do, what readings and things like that I need to do for class. I've got a packing list for a trip and things that I need to, some shots that I have to get, all of that kind of thing. Um, I have this little nifty note. We went to South Africa for a project, and this is just fun. When we meet the king, we need to wear a skirt. So we actually did a project and worked with a Zulu tribe, and we met the king of the tribe. And if you were going to be in his presence and you were female, you had to have on a skirt. So that was a good reminder if I'm making a packing list, that I need to make sure that I have things to go with a skirt. Then as we get a little further into this journal, I start getting a little bit more decorative. So you can see here I've got the regular day, and then I decided, you know what? I'm going to try something a little bit prettier. So we have these, these time frames on the top here. We're tracking when we're doing certain types of activities. So we've got sleep, we have school, we have work, and then we have, I'm trying to figure out what this is. Oh, we have date night. Here we go. So this is an activity that I'm doing with my partner. So we have got all of these things here. We've got a nice little date. We've got the high temperature for the day. Sometimes, not all the time, apparently. So some days I'm not remembering to do that, but some days I am. So we've got a little bit more decorative planning, and you will see that I like this style, and this tends to live with me for quite a while. So as we go from 2016, July to December, into 2017, we'll start with January of 2017. This was the year that I decided I was going to have matching journals. I get about 6 months in one of these books, and I decided in 2017 that every year I was going to match, and that lasted for exactly 1 year. Uh, so all of my other journals are, mismatched colors, but for 1 year I had a matching set. Let's go into this January one, and I've kind of pre-marked out some of these pages to just illustrate different things. I have created a weekly spread here in the journal, and again, you can see that my pen is coming through, and that did not happen in real time, that happened over time. So in real time, you didn't have this ghosting the way that you do here. So a lot of people are very concerned with ghosting with the Hobonichi style planners, and and Sterling Ink and things like that. The ghosting in these Leuchtturm and bullet journal style journals does happen. It just takes a long time for it to happen. So you'll still see that ghosting. But anyway, I have a good meal plan over here. I've got just kind of my appointments around the edge here. And then I have a weekly focus and a weekly task list. And I'm tracking some water and working on, what I need to pay attention to for next week. So I'm planning, I'm looking ahead. I've got the week within the year, and then, what days or dates it goes from February 12th to February 18th here. Then, let's see. I am still planning kind of this way in this particular journal. So I've got still that little flag that I started in the last journal. I've got my timeline across the top of the day. And so I'm kind of tracking where I'm at each point in time. So again, we've got work is green. In this case, classes are purple. Date night or activities with my partner are in blue. And then sleep is in orange. And so I'm just trying to kind of track my day. I've got some good quotes that I like in here. I have some notes from a meeting. Everything is happening in here in real time. And I also have a monthly view that I look at. And I have to create this. So I create every day or every week I have to create this. Every day I create one of these strips, and then every month I have to create this. So in this case, this is my just a monthly spread. I've got the focus up here at the top. I have just the things that are out of the ordinary, so things that don't necessarily happen on a regular basis. And if they do happen on a regular basis, I'm just writing in very briefly, class. I'm not writing which class or work or, I gave a speech. Um, and so I just have kind of a general, we've got some birthdays on here, we've got paydays noted, things like that. Just kind of generally what's happening on this day. This is basically something that I'm using when I go to create my day to look at and see what items I need to make sure I'm including. And then we have some things over here that are, trackers, lots and lots and lots of trackers. And you can see I use some of them better than others. Some of them I'm not consistent with. And so they may have worked, but they didn't really work. We still have, we're still going with the same idea here. And I have in this one added in some decorative spreads. So this is what everybody wants when they get into bullet journaling right here. This is one of my favorite spreads ever, this bookshelf. And you'll see I try to recreate this again and it never looks this good. I never get the level of detail that I got in this one. This took a long time to create and I was very, very happy with it. The idea was that every book I wanted to read would get written onto one of these spines, and then every time I read the book, it would get colored in. Now, I think I probably only did read this much during this year because I was in school. And when I'm in school and I have to read for school, that's not included in here, and I don't tend to read as much. I also have a movie theater spread of movies and shows that I want to go see. I loved this one as well. We have all of the little seats in the movie theater, and you would write the name of the movie on the seat, and then when you saw it, it would get colored in. And I even did shading on here. I absolutely loved these decorative spreads. We had a dart lake that we were in, so we got a spread for that. So we're working on spreads for various, kind of one-off things. Like there's only one of these in the whole 6-month journal. I have a bucket list. I have some goals, kind of pie in the sky goals. I think win the lottery might be on here. Um, these are not goals. Neither one of these are goals that I'm actively necessarily working towards. They're just things that I want to do someday, or I would love to have happen someday. And so I created this little I Dream of Jeannie spread with the bottle there. And so I've got, I'm starting to get these kind of decorative elements in the journal here. And that is the last journal that really gets that decorative for a while. When I get into 2017 July, I'm getting out of school at this point. I'm starting to, I got out of school in August, so I had my very last class. This was my last class. We went to Jordan, and I had, for Jordan, I wanted to know kind of where all the locations were that we were going. So if I was in a meeting and people were talking about something happening in Al-Karak, I would know where that is in relation to where we were, which was Madaba. And so I just wanted to make sure that I knew where people were talking about. Also, being not as familiar with the whole setup of the Middle East, I wanted to make sure that I had that map so I knew where, for example, Syria, and Iraq, and Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Israel, the Jerusalem area, and then Lebanon. I wanted to know where all of those things were in relation to Jordan while we were there. So that was super useful. This was really helpful. I referred to this a lot did take a few minutes to make it, but it was very, very helpful on that trip. As you can see, we're experimenting with some different ideas here for our headers for the days. So I've got the day and the date, and then I've got my AM and PM as two separate instead of going all the way across the top here. AM and PM are now one on top of the other, and I've still got sleep hours, and then I have class hours. For example, everything I'm doing in this particular time is for a class, but when I have to be on site at, for example, a meeting, or we were working on an archaeological site, I would have those hours kind of blocked off here. And then we also have a water tracker, especially in Jordan. It was very important to drink water all the time because it is that kind of desert environment. I've got my step counts, and I've got a tracker for money in and out. Especially when I'm traveling, that's really important because I definitely have a budget when I was traveling as a student. And so we're paying attention to those kind of things. This is kind of sloppy looking. I do have notes from our meetings for those days in this particular journal. Then we get towards later in the journal, and I love the way these days looked. I know it may still look sloppy with all of these things around here, but these are just really, really really nicely done. I like the way these look. So we've got this flag here at the top. Let's look at this one. And you've got our sleep hours here. We've got we have a party. So we were at a party here. We had Greek Fest. We had a whole bunch of things that we were doing. And then we've got the weather, the steps, again, water, all those things that are kind of important to be tracking. Then we go to here. This is, we've got a baking day. So this is getting close to Christmas. And we're having people over. And so I'm trying to work through these timelines. And when I'm starting to work through these timelines, I picked this specific spread because this is when you first start to see these vertical timelines and how I'm finding that to be very, very useful. If you have to get ready for guests to come and you've got things going in the oven and all of these different things going on, having a big vertical timeline like this is very, very helpful to know when everything has to happen. Here I'm making a whole bunch of different kinds of cookies. I made Chex Mix and wedding cookies and sugar cookies and kolaches and peanut butter cookies and snow caps I was going to make, but it was too cloudy. And then I was icing. There's a lot going on here. I'm making a ton of food on that day, and keeping organized by the hour becomes very, very handy. So these vertical timelines go into effect, and I'm not as thrilled with this timeline at the top. And this is when I first started to kind of move away, I want to say, from bullet journaling. Now, you'll notice this is 2017, and I did not get into my first Hobonichi until 2022. So it takes me a full 5 years before I really, really figure out why this type of journaling has kind of stopped working for me. And so we will kind of look through. One thing to note also is these do tend to lose their elasticity over time as well. In some of my old ones, I actually just cut these off, these bands, when I went to store them. But for right now, I still have them on here. Let's go into the 2018 journal. So as you can see, we have this bookshelf here. And I told you that it was not going to look as nice as the one that we had before. So this is what we had before. See how pretty this is, and then see how I'm trying to copy some elements, but it's just not working as well. I found that copying over, I just kind of got lost in those little details. I didn't even bother to draw uh, Sherlock Holmes over here, the Nevermore Raven. None of that happened. The clock is very, very messy. I'm trying to get that feeling back, and I'm just failing at it. And so that is, excuse me, I had to get a drink there. So that is, uh, it's all right, but it's not working as well. I'm not feeling it as much. I do still have the weeks that I'm doing, but at this point, I still have my weeks up here, but I don't have classes that I'm going to all the time. I'm kind of going to work day in and day out, and I'm not attending class or doing anything like that. I do still have all of my meals. I'm keeping track of breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snacks, and I'm even tracking calories and then figuring out what those calories are here every day. And then I'm doing check-ins for weight and size over here. Now all of this looks great, but I've got big empty spaces. I'm not loving the big empty spaces. Those kind of make me a little nervous, and I'm not loving spending time in here. I am still also doing the timeline at the top. I am still trying to make it decorative, so we do still have a little bit of color in here. We've got the weather. I don't see step counts on these anymore, so we're not paying attention to that anymore. So even though we're clearly invested in health because we're tracking all these calories, but I'm not paying attention to steps over here. I'm maybe on my phone. I do still have my water count. I'm clearly not drinking enough water, or I'm not tracking it well enough. But it does still look pretty at this point. This is 2018. Now I'm out of school at this point, and I'm in the workforce, and the bookshelf I did not have time for. I didn't have time to really do anything with it. So this is what it has kind of devolved into. It still looks fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not bad. But all of those little decorative elements that I told myself I would add later, I have not added later, clearly. So my decorative spreads have kind of gotten to this level. Now I do have still the movies again, because this is one of my all-time favorite spreads. I absolutely love this, and this was fairly easy to do. And I've got also some Broadway shows dispersed in here. And at this point, I'm writing things in order as I see them, and then I'm coloring them in as we go to watch them. And then you can see at this point, this weekly spread has gotten very, very messy. I'm recording what I'm doing, but there's really no decoration to it other than, coloring in at the top, but it's very, very sloppy. Nothing's drawing my eye to one thing over another. I do have a nice little rainbow here on my breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. We're not tracking calories anymore. We have fallen off of that. And I clearly have no energy to even figure out what is going on with this page. So we do still have our kind of decorative weekly spread here. We are tracking something. What am I tracking? I think I'm tracking sleep at this point. And I don't think I'm sleeping well. And I'm barely even tracking that. So I'm writing this out every day. I'm taking that time to do that, and I'm not even using it on most days. Everything is starting to look a bit sloppy. And for me, when it starts to look sloppy like this, I tend to not want to pick it up and use it because it's not pretty and it doesn't really bring me joy to use it. So by 2018, I'm already starting to notice things are getting very, very sloppy. 2019, I start off, we're in a fairly new journal, right? And so whenever I start a new journal, it looks all pretty like this, but I am not tracking, I'm not using this time frame for anything. So again, I'm taking the time and that space to draw that out every single day, and I'm not using it. I am still tracking water, sort of. Clearly, I had more than 3 glasses of water in these 5 days. So, I'm not really tracking it. There's an illusion of my tracking it. I am paying attention to the things that need to get done day in and day out, but that's about it. So as I get further into this journal, again, this is at the beginning of the journal. So you see how far we are in. We're very close to the beginning. As I get further in the journal, I have abandoned all color, all of the really decorative elements of the journal. We just have lines in between because we weren't using those time calendars or the time uh, row across the top. We weren't marking anything with that. We're not paying attention to that. So now we've just got these lists. This is very much just basic bullet journal style. So I do have some decorative weather icons that I have drawn, and I'm tracking the temperatures on the days, most days, obviously not that day. But basically, I've gone back to just really traditional bullet journal style. So we've gotten back to just really the basics. That brings us into 2019. And in 2019, I have developed this monthly spread. This is new to 2019, and I like it. It's pretty. It's got, a little bit of color. So I've used color here for the month. I've used color to indicate the weekends and then to kind of section things off. I've got some monthly focus, current projects that I'm working on, and monthly tasks that need to get taken care of in this month. I'm adding in just basic things that need to happen during the course of the day. And then I have a habit tracker over here that obviously I'm only using certain elements of it. I'm not using it really well. Either that or I'm just not doing any of these things, which is also possible. But I do like this. You will see that I end up using this monthly spread for a really long time. However, this also means that I do have to draw this out every single time. Every month, this spread has to be drawn. Then we have kind of this overall spread here. Again, we have gone we're trying to get back a little bit of that decoration again because we had gone to just strictly bullet journaling, and now we're trying to add a little bit of decoration. So we have these flags for the date, then we have the day under here, and then our weather icon and our temperatures here. It's not bad. If I just have a pen and pencil, this is actually pretty nice looking. Or, pen and paper. This is pretty nice looking. I can see what's going on. I'm using the size of the font and the spacing to indicate kind of, some of the more important day, whole day things. And then I just have a list going. I'm using the symbols from bullet journaling. That is something that I have done for a long time, so I am very comfortable with that. So here's where my library has gotten to now at this point. I just have a list. There's no bookshelves. It's not pretty. I don't love it. I do still try and get in and make this, but I'm not coloring it well. It's not pretty anymore. It's just kind of devolving. I'm getting sick of writing all of these spreads all the time. Every 6 months, I'm in a new one of these, and I have to rewrite all of these master spreads. So I'm not loving that. And you can definitely tell, like when I get sick of a journal, you can definitely tell, or sick of a style, because I'm just not going to be spending time in there. So we get into 2020, and we all know what happens in 2020, right? Um, so we're not really going anywhere. Again, January, I'm still working with this same spread. I've got the month highlighted here in color. I have the weekends highlighted, and then I'm using that color to define the areas of the page. Um, my habit tracker's looking a little bit better. I have some stuff going on, but as we get further into the year, obviously we all know what happens, and eventually I fall off of this almost entirely, because if all you have to do is stay in the house, then you're not really going to uh, have a lot to journal about. So, so I do use it, but I'm not using it as much. I have gone to very, very plain daily headers. So just a little box with the date, the day, and the temperatures. We're not paying attention to whether there's sunshine or clouds or anything else like that at this point. And we are still using, again, that bullet journaling. And occasionally I'm getting in here and highlighting with colors to kind of indicate that certain things are happening. Now, one of the interesting things to me about this is that I'm not tracking the weather. I'm not putting weather icons in here. Now, for me, I tend to, especially in February and March, I tend to have that seasonal affected disorder if I'm out of the sunshine a lot. And so I really like to pay attention to what the sun and clouds are doing. And so the fact that I'm not doing that tells me that, maybe I'm struggling a little bit in here. Um, so, that just something to, as I look back, I can tell that very clearly from what I've got in here. As we move on to July to December of 2020, this was rough. I've still got some things going on, so I'm clearly still planning. I'm trying to do things. I have a little infrared sauna, so I'm trying to get that in. I'm not coloring in the month anymore, but I am still making this same monthly spread over and over and over again every month. But now I have really kind of given up on the day-to-day. The day-to-day is really, really struggling. You see, oh, we do have a weekly. Okay, so the weekly's looking nice. I like the way this looks. I used this spread for a really long time. I've got some budgeting. I've got all of the days of the week and what are going on those particular days. I'm making it pretty. There's some color involved. I'm tracking here the sunshine and the temperature. So maybe that's why I'm not tracking it in my day-to-day. And then I was particularly influenced by that level 10 life. And so anytime I did anything in one of those levels, I was marking it off on here, and then I was tracking meals just generally. So I'm no longer separating them by breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack. I am just, what did I eat and how much water did I drink? Um, and then that leaves these dailies to look very, very, very basic. So again, grocery shop, shower, make juice. I probably did all those things. I didn't mark any of them off. Um, we're just it's just text and nothing more. There's nothing pretty or graphical about this. I did have a line over to kind of make a heading, but then that goes away over here. And so now it's just a line on the bottom, just to indicate one day to the next. Again, I can tell you that I am really, by this point, not loving my journal. I want to love it again. I want to get back into this again, but I'm not loving it. It is not bringing me joy. It does not make me happy at this point. and I'm really, really struggling with it. And I'm starting to investigate other options. So as you can see here, again, it is just text. I do have, I'm highlighting and putting in some recipes and stuff, but I would never be able to really necessarily find this recipe again. Now I do have an index, and I did put keto recipes, but I don't know. So this is page 36, and I do indicate that there's a recipe there, but I don't know what it is. I would have to go back and look through all of these to find out what they are. So at this point, I'm doing keto, but so I want those recipes to be easy to find, but they're really not. If we look in here, because I'm doing keto, I've taken this spread and I have modified it. So now, instead of paying attention to, I'm writing down what I eat in the day, but instead of paying attention to when I eat it, I am paying attention to the carbs, the proteins, the fats, and then how much water I'm drinking. And so this is kind of just a typical, again, we've got the week going all the way around, and then we have these goals and notes. And again, this is January of 2021. We're all kind of still in that COVID mess. And so there's not really a lot going on. I'm just trying to get a handle on my health at this point. I do still have these calendars, and I have added any holidays now are in color. So I am still using those colors. And again, at this point, I am still just using these Papermate flares. So that is my color in all of these journals, just Papermate flares. And I like them. They work fine. Again, we're just lists of things in here. So I'm adding colors still where I can. I'm still trying to make it pretty, but it's not really serving me well. We get to here, and there's a little color, but I'm no longer adding color to kind of define the spaces. I am still defining the weekends. It is looking very sloppy because at this point I'm working now. In 2021, I'm working again. I'm back in the office. I really don't have time to draw this every month. I was working at this point 50 to 60 hours a week with an hour commute at the beginning and end of each day. So, my week was basically 60 to 70 hours of work time, and then barely any time to really even think. If you look in here, I am still doing just the basic bullet journaling, and that's good. It's helping me keep track of things. It's helping me keep track of the projects that need to get done. I'm trying to figure out a way in here to kind of, I worked 11 hours that day. So, I'm trying to figure out all of the things that need done. I'm trying to limit them or to prioritize them or something in here. It's all just getting thrown in here, and it's feeling very, very messy at this point. So when life gets really, really complicated, especially if you have, like, I've got a lot of work projects, I've got home projects. I can't necessarily deal with home projects while I'm at work. I need to separate those out. There's a lot going on, and it gets very, very confusing in a bullet journal style because you're creating it as you go. So every day you're having to come up with this kind of new list of things. And then when you have things that get added here, they need to appear somewhere else. So as a new task comes in, where does it go? It might not necessarily be a task for today. It might be for next week or something like that. And then I have to store it here, and then I have to come back and find it here and move it to next week. It gets to be a little bit challenging when you have a lot going on to keep up a bullet journal. So that is just kind of there's nothing wrong with it. It just gets to be quite challenging. And it also gets to be a lot of work to get in here all the time. So we go to January of 2022 is where we're at now, and I have found stickers. And stickers make life a bit easier because I can use stickers for things like the days of the week, and I can use stickers for my weather icons and things like that. But I'm not, this is supposed to be daily goals. I must have had goals, but none that I know of. Um, you know, I'm not really paying that close attention to it. I am still doing kind of just this line for the day and then a task list or, whatever needs to get done that day style of bullet journaling. I do have, again, I'm back to the monthly spreads with kind of these dividers here. I found some stickers for things like a no spend challenge and a 30-second plank challenge. And so February, the monthly stickers here. And so I kind of add a little bit of color to try and coordinate, but again, I'm not really succeeding very well. I've also started adding tabs in here so I can find the months as I go, because that was getting really difficult for me to deal with, not knowing where everything was in the journal. Again, because at this point I'm working and I'm having to come back to this and find information again. And I'm realizing where my system is falling flat. And that is that I don't have a good place to put a lot of future tasks and appointments and elements within here. Your bullet journal can handle some future things because you do have that future log, but it can't handle a lot. And so I'm finding that this is really not very effective for me at this point. And so I just kind of start falling off of this. And in April of this year, I decided I wanted to be, or May of this year, I decided I wanted to try a Hobonichi. Now, I had seen Hobonichi all over the place, and I was very excited about it. At the time, I was not aware of the coffee monsters, but I do clearly find them and Every Minute a Story and all of them very quickly once I get into that Hobonichi world. But I was looking for somewhere where I could put information, where it had already created spreads for months, days, and weeks, that where I could compile information and keep it, and be able to reference it and find it very quickly. So I did not finish out, even though it looks like I finished out this journal. I get to June, and June is basically empty, because I end up getting the Hobonichi and it arrives in the beginning of June. So the Hobonichi has, I've done a whole video on what all is in here. So I look through my Hobonichi and my Sterling Ink, and I will put that video up here if you want to know what the contents of this is and really how I used it the best. But let's look at a couple spreads within here, just to kind of see. So we have these weekly spreads, and I am loving the weekly spread. I get to be creative in here. It looks pretty without being a lot of work because all I have to do is put down some stickers and everything looks cute. I already know where the days are. I can track my work. I can track meetings. I can clearly see where I need to be when, and I absolutely love it. It is very, very easy for me to tell where and when everything is during this week. And so having this particular vertical spread really, really saved my sanity and the colors. So at this point, I'm using green for everything work related. I'm using yellow for everything that has to do with my car. So if we have to be in my car. Pink is for anything date related. This peachy orange color is for friends. And then the gray color is to kind of track dinners and things like that. I'm not coordinating at this point any of the colors of the pens to the stickers. I'm just using the stickers that are cute and I like them, and I'm not worrying about whether they match or coordinate. Again, here you can see that I'm using the same colors from week to week, and it's only the stickers that are changing. Now this one in particular I really like because I will be using this haunted house washi again this week. And so, you know, that'll be fun to get that back out again. But we've got a lot going on, but I can tell where I need to be when, and that is really, really helpful in here. I can put all of my meetings and all my timed events into this spread, and then I can use the things at the back for just tasks, things that need to get done. So to that note, in the back, we have things like this. So pages like this. So what I'm doing at the beginning of every single day is I am drawing this line down here, and I'm sectioning off for work tasks and personal tasks. So if I'm at work, I don't need to pay attention to these personal tasks because I can't do them while I'm working. I'm only looking at these particular tasks. For me, this becomes a huge relief to just have, you know, there's a couple things that I need to work on, and then the personal tasks that I can deal with when I get home. If I have a personal task that needs to be dealt with during work, then I indicate it differently. I've got sometimes some little quotes down here, or I might have meal planning. I'm using washi along the bottom, which is why this is so much fatter at the bottom than it is up here at the top, because I frequently use washi at the bottom. I've got some memory keeping in here. I've just got some regular journaling in here. There's all kinds of different things, and they're all working together to keep me kind of on task and organized. And one of the best parts of this is that I can look up, if I go to that codex in the beginning, I have indexed what all of this is. So if I want to see, you know, something about the fire in the shop, if I go to July 16th, it will say, or 17th, it will say journal shop on fire. And, you know, that I know that that is here. So we have got that going on. And then, you know, sometimes it's pretty like this. Sometimes it's a little bit messier. And then I have got some memory keeping. So there are a lot of people that say that these boxes that Hobonichi has and all of the structure within a Hobonichi gets gets in the way of being creative. And my theory is that I will just, if I don't want that in whatever I'm doing, I will just cover it up with some stickers or some washi tape. In this case, these are two just regular days, same as any other day in the Hobonichi. So they started out looking like any other day would. So they started off looking just like this. So they had the little box at the top with the date in it. They had the quote at the bottom, calendars, the things on the side, all of that. And I have just covered up what I don't need, and I have used it as I would a bullet journal for a decorative spread. And I can do a decorative spread, but I don't have to. There's no pressure to. It can be messy. If it needs to be messy and not have a lot of decoration and stickers and things going on, it can be messy. The next page could look like this. It becomes exactly what I need it to be, which is what I love so much about this. And then I've got in here, you know, just notes on a video that I watched about how to plant a tree next to a recipe, next to some, you know, some tasks over here. And then this was during the Advent period, so I have some of the little packaging from the Advent washi tape that I opened on this particular day. So this was the 10th. And then down here, I have some finances. I don't think there's anything really secretive there, but I'm going to cover it just in case. And so you know, I'm using it for whatever I need to use it for. I have an index so I can find everything. I can find notes if I need to take notes on a particular project. And so I absolutely love this thing, but I don't love this chunk. I didn't even use this for a full year. You can see the time that I haven't used on either, you know, on either end here. I didn't use this for a full year and it is huge. It's heavy and this gets heavy to throw in my bag all the time. So after 2022, as we move into 2023, I decide to get the Avec. Now the Avec is the exact same thing as the Hobonichi, but split into January to June and July to December. And so I have got the Avec for 2023. And we will look at some of these. At this point, I am still using that coating, those particular colors for different things. So green is still work, yellow is still the car. I have a weekend banner. I don't always do that anymore. I have a YouTube watch list. These are the YouTube videos that I want to see every week. And so I paid attention to that for a while. I'm adding in things like fortune cookies. This is what I love about this plan. I love this. For me, everything is, even though there's a lot going on in this spread, everything is very clear to me. I can tell exactly what was going on here. And so I love that. And then I decide, so I go from this to 1 week in February. I decided to match the pens to the washi. And so I used this washi and I decided to do a pink and gray theme to go with this washi. And then obviously the black from the pen. And I absolutely loved how this turned out. We have different pinks, we have the grays, and then all of the stickers are also in pinks and grays, except for these little basketballs. I just loved it. I loved the idea that I could match the pens to the stickers. So that becomes kind of my new thing, decorative thing here. So you can see I have taken that to the extreme here. So this is our Mickey Mouse, and I get to use the red and the yellow and the black. And I just love how this looks. I've got a little bit of space below the washi. That is something that I'm missing in my B6. I don't have that space really as much below the washi anymore. And I have all kinds of things going on the side over here. And I do have my weather down here at the bottom. Now, if you've watched my plan with me, as you know, now the weather is up at the top, but it used to be at the bottom for me. But I absolutely love these spreads. And one is more cute than the next. So here we have a rainbow spread. So I have taken all these different washes. I got into the Simply Gilded world and I got washes in all the different colors. So we have our whole rainbow across the bottom and then the rainbow at the top here on the weekend as our weekend header. And then I got to use a different pen every single day for all of the activities for that day. This one was really fun to do. It is a bit of a commitment because if you are working on this or working during this week, I would need to bring these pens with me every single day, because if I put a meeting on my calendar for Thursday, on Monday, I needed to have that green pen ready to go so that I could put that there. And so doing a spread like this means just carrying a lot of pens. So once Monday's done, you can put that pen away. Once Tuesday's done, you can put that pen away. But it does require a bit more commitment in terms of carrying your pens around. And then one of the other things I really liked was that at the end of this one and the beginning of this next book, I used the exact same washi from one book to the next. And then I just drew that kind of thick line down the middle. So we have everything coming here to the new planner, and then in the new planner, we just have that little bit of a week. And I actually love the way that looked. You know, a lot of people would fill this whole thing out in this week and then, or fill this whole thing out over here, or one or the other. I just thought it looked great to, you know, this is when I'm switching. This is the new month. We're going to the new planner. And then again, here in the back, we are still doing this thing right here where I've got the work tasks. I've got some personal tasks. And then I have little blurbs that I've added at the bottom here. I've got movie stubs and all kinds of notes. These are work notes. They're pretty messy, but you know, it's in with everything else, so it doesn't look messy to me because the whole thing looks decorative as a whole. And so it makes me want to get in here and play. I do still have some memory keeping. Sometimes I leave the date so that I can see it, but I cover up everything else. Sometimes I just have a little bit of ephemera added in or some photos added in. Here I kept the part of the program, and so I've stuck those in here as well. If I don't have necessarily tasks, like on the weekend I might not have any tasks, then I don't really have to worry so much about having this little area. But I don't mind having that. I think that's actually kind of nice to have those tasks in here with everything else. So that is the first Hobonichi, and then we go to the second, and I already showed you that very first spread. I'll show you a couple others that I really loved. This coffee one with all the browns I loved. I thought that was great. And I can very clearly see, like, when I watch television or those kind of things, when I watched YouTube. And I was a big YouTube watcher. I mean, I still am, but I was a big YouTube watcher prior to wanting to start YouTube. So, you know, I do have a lot of experience with the watching of it and consuming YouTube. So I have grand ideas of what I think my YouTube will eventually be like, but obviously we're not there yet. And then I do have now some other stickers. So again, the bottom of this is bulking up a lot faster because I do tend to put stickers and washi down here at the bottom. Now, this is a page that I really, really liked. Again, we have that kind of bold red again. I think I really like the bold red, but we've got this kind of Harry Potter theme. We're into November, so I think there was probably something, I may have watched Harry Potter or something like that, but this is a week when I was sick all week. I worked at home. I was sick. I took this day off. I slept. I was sick all week long. And yet I still have something that looks pretty. So even when I'm sick, it doesn't take me a lot of effort to make this look nice. And that keeps me involved in this. It keeps me using it. This is one thing I really also liked. Right around Christmas of this year, I decided to try and do this one day. So this is Yule, and then everything else is kind of Christmas related. But for that one day, we are kind of taking a pause and a breather. And so I did that day completely differently than the whole rest of the page. And I absolutely love the way that this turned out with that one page differently, or one column differently. And one of the reasons that I knew that this would work well was because this blue, the snow here in this washi is kind of this blue. So it still kind of coordinates, even though it's different. And I absolutely love that. And then, so then I did it again for Christmas. So Christmas has all of the red, and then everything else is green. And so I just really, really like the way that those turned out. And again, I am still doing, so even when I have this almost like a scrapbook effect here, where I am memory keeping about a particular Ren fair that we went to, I still have my little tasks here on the side, and it does not bother me that those are there on the side. I am not doing this for anybody but myself, but when I come back to look at those tasks and I see this makes me happy. When I'm at work and I have to go back and find notes for something and I'm thumbing through this and I stumble across a great memory, it always makes me smile. So that is one of the things that I really, really loved about Hobonichi, and that I'm kind of missing a little bit about Sterling Ink because I don't have a day anymore to do this on. So here we have, I'm taking notes. I'm studying for my Part 107 test to pilot a drone, but at the same time, and I've got little work to do's, and then I go to an event. In this case, I had very small amounts of work and just one little task. And so I just drew boxes around those and then wrote everything else. And I have gotten stickers now. It's actually a washi that has work and to do on them so that I can just stick those down if I need to. And I haven't used those since I got the Sterling Ink because, again, I don't have that kind of space. A lot of people will mention that they don't have all the stickers and the washi and everything else. And I mean, here, this particular spread, this is just the package that your 3D glasses come in if you go to a 3D movie. It does not have to be fancy stickers and things like that. This is one of those stars that comes on a star chart that you give to kids. So it does not have to be anything fancy at all whatsoever to be cute. You can just take the things that are coming to you and coming into your life anyway and assemble them in a way that makes it really cute and something that you like looking at. The main thing is that it's cute and that you like looking at it, because if you like spending time looking at these things, you will spend more time planning uh, and looking at the goals and the things that are important to you to do. If not, a lot of times the things that are important to you to do tend to fall by the wayside, and you will tend to do all the things that other people want you to do instead. So this is really nice to just make sure that you're getting into here regularly and doing the things that make you happy and make you successful. So after this year, I decided to go with a Sterling Ink, and I really, really wanted to try and go with something a little bit smaller, something that would be easier to throw in a purse, because even though, these are half year, they do still get pretty chunky, they do get pretty heavy and hefty, and so I decided to go with this little baby. This is an A6, so it is half the size of the A5, and it is the tiniest, cutest little planner ever. So this is a Sterling Ink, and this is January to June of 2024. So this is another 2-book planner, and I did get both books in this A6 size. Now you'll see I ended up switching sizes, so I didn't use the second half of the year, but I did try and go with this A6 size. So as you can see, I'm still trying to do the daily timed planning, and this is when the box develops, because if I write work in every single column all the way across here, I'm not going to have room to write all the other things that I actually have to do for the work. And so so where in this one I had for example, work at the top, by the time I would write that, that's half of that day that's devoted just to writing the word work. And so that is how the box developed, where I just draw a box around my work time and then everything else is my time. I do still have some room down at the bottom for notes because, this is midnight here, but I only have one line for each hour. Now, sometimes I'll have multiple half-hour meetings, one right after the other, and so I don't always have enough time to write everything in, or space to write everything in. but I am still tracking all of the things that I want to be tracking on this vertical calendar, and I do still like it. So nothing wrong with that. I can tell that I had dinner out that day because it's yellow. That means I was in my car. So I'm back to kind of coordinating the color of the pen to the task, not so much to the washi at that point. Then later I do have one where this is a vacation that we went on. So we were on vacation all week, and I just came back in and wrote kind of at the end of the day what we did when. So I only had one pen with me when we were on vacation. I had made this ahead of time because this was a travel day and I already knew that this was happening. But everything else is just kind of written in as we go on that particular day. And then I added, because I didn't have anything past midnight, I added some flowers and some pictures and so that kept it interesting. I had put over here some of the things that we wanted to go do, and I ended up crossing out a thing over here, and then the souvenirs that we had to get. We did get all the souvenirs, but I didn't end up checking any of that off because, again, we were on vacation, and so that's fine. It worked just fine. Then when we get into, because there's no dailies, I'm back to having to draw the day. And then I put a little line and then I bullet journal. I do have some things like quotes in here. I have to go get groceries we had a blizzard coming in, things like that. But I'm back to kind of that bullet journal style in here. And I don't love that because that kind of makes me a little sad. So I am trying to kind of have some focus items. I've got some dots here where I'm putting things that are really, really important. And I tried something new, and I did like this. I might go back to this at some point. But I put in the tasks, and then I put in the distractions. What was distracting me from doing the things that I needed to be doing? Because I noticed that I was, I wasn't getting all of my tasks done every day, and it was because I was getting distracted. And so I wanted to track that. So I did that for a while, and that was really nice. And it's something that I recommend if you find that a lot of your tasks at the end of the day are not showing up as done. Start writing out what your distractions are. I think I got this idea from Rachel in Theory, I want to say. But if you pay attention to what your distractions are, you will find that your tasks start to get done because you start to either build in time for those distractions, or you're noticing them enough that you're no longer letting them distract you. One of my favorite things in this little book that I did was to take all of every washi that I used on these weekly pages. I put them all in here along with samples of the sticker kits that I was using each month. And so I had these great monthly themes along with the fountain pen inks and the particular combo markers that I was using for each month. I actually really love this. I need to bring this back. I just discovered it when I was marking pages for this particular video, and this just makes me so happy to look at. I know it looks messy, but it is just such a neat little capsule of what is going on in a particular month. So I definitely want to find somewhere that this can live in my new journals in 2026 because that makes me really happy. But overall, this was just too small for me. I ended up not loving the small size. And so halfway through the year, I did get the B6. Since this is a half-year journal, this is a full journal. But then for the second half of the year, I used the B6 here. And so again, these journals all have a monthly spread. So I do use the monthly spread kind of the same as I always have. So the appointments are on here. Anything that I know ahead of time is going to happen goes onto the monthly spread. so that I can see it ahead of time, and then I plan the week, the weekend before. So on Sunday, it used to be Saturday or Sunday, now it's always Sunday. I am planning that next week in the vertical spreads. But I do have things that are existing on this monthly spread before that. On our weekly spreads, this one I just particularly loved because I love the Alice in Wonderland theme, and these are colors that I would never think to put together. I have gotten the colors directly from the washi colors, and so I have put them all together and they work because they all coordinate with the washi in some way, shape, or form. So if you are not very artistic and you get some washi tape and some coordinating markers, you can actually make something that looks really, really nice because you have coordinated with colors that have already been chosen by whoever designed the washi. So if you like the way the washi looks and those colors work well in the washi, chances are they're going to work really well in your spread. So again, would never have thought to put all of these colors together. I might have had the gray with these colors. I definitely would not have had the brown in there, but it works. And so that's just something to keep in mind. This week, this is the end of 2024, I was packing. We were moving down here to St. Louis. I had to work and I ended up having to work a lot of extra time, but I was moving the very next weekend and I really didn't have time to think about my journal, to pay any attention to the journal. So anything that I had to do that I really had to pay attention to, that was in here, but I wasn't doing anything else. And so I just wrote in here that I'm packing those days. So I came and used these colors again because they're from this washi and just added in the word pack over and over again. It doesn't have to be really complicated. If you have a week that things don't happen, things don't happen, and that's okay. That's part of our lives. This journal is when I started using the Alistair method. So if you guys have been on any of my planning videos, you know that I use an Alistair method. I've revised it a little bit, but not much from here. So this has the week and check mark for done. I have added a exclamation point for if it's important. I added a to when it's due column. I don't have these in here. And then each day of that particular week. And then I just added the stickers afterwards. So wherever there was white space, I threw in some stickers. The Sterling Ink doesn't have, they have blank pages at the back. So when you get into the back of the Sterling Ink, pages look like this, right? So there's nothing on here, it's blank. And so you can do whatever you want with them, which is great. But it also takes me back to that bullet journaling phase of life. So here we've spent a long weekend in Texas. We've got all kinds of things going on here. I've got a list of what the weather's going to be like. I have a whole list of things to do, and then they're color coded by whether they're outside or inside. So these are all potential things to do. We were only going to be there for 5 days and 4 nights, and those 5 days include our flights on either side. So really 3 full days. And so obviously we're not going to do all of this, but we just wanted to go and have fun and see Austin. So we got, I was able to put a whole bunch of options in here. I have my packing list. We've got our hotel information, our flight information, and then we have on those flight days, we had to walk to the train, take the first train, walk to a second train, take the second train to the airport, get on a plane, and then arrive, and then take a shuttle to the hotel, and then all of that in reverse, but with a second airplane. So these travel day itineraries were very, very important for keeping us on track and making sure that we got to where we needed to get to. And so having these blank pages is really nice. Now, if this was a Hobonichi, that would not have bothered me. I would have just written this right over um, what was there. I probably would have put a washi down here, but other than that, it would have been the same thing. Um, and then here's a spread I particularly like. I had come back to this particular page. I think I had left it blank because I did a 2-page spread on the other side, and I was watching a YouTube video. I started taking notes. I ran out of room, so I wrote all of this, and then I started writing on another page and just ended up taping it in here. So this is just taped in with some washi tape, and so now I have all of the notes for that on the same thing. So even though it was a mistake, I probably should have used 2 pages and gone to the next 2-page spread. I didn't end up doing that, and it ended up looking really cool. So don't ever worry about that. Just do what you need to do for that particular time in your journal, and it will end up working out. So then we get into 2025. We're into this year now. And so one of my favorite spreads, I'm kind of back to matching to the theme or the washi. In this case, this is Lunar New Year, so I knew everything was going to be red and gold because those are the colors for Lunar New Year, but then this particular tape also had this kind of faded pink color, so I used that as well. I used some elements from a sticker kit because she does have this is Coffee Monsters Co., and she had a Lunar New Year sticker kit. So I used quite a few of those. It's the Year of the Snake, and I absolutely love the way this turned out. That is one of my favorite spreads for the year. So even though I was having a terrible time in my daily life, got 2 flat tires, and we had to wait for like 2 hours for a tow truck. It was horrible. And then it messed up everything that we were doing the next day. It was a big mess. But even though all of that is going on, I can still look back on this spread and it makes me happy. Here I decided to use a metallic pen around the edges, and so that was prompted by the foiling on this particular washi. And so I used the metallic pen for all the work stuff. I don't love the way it turned out, but it still looks cute, and I don't hate it. So there are those times where you just need to try something and you might not love it, and that's okay. As long as you're not hating it. So I have all kinds of, one of the things that I use these for, especially, is for getting things out of my head. So I am notorious for getting my brain stuck on something that I'm thinking about something and thinking about something and thinking about something, and it just will not leave my brain, and I can't focus on anything else. And in this case, in the beginning part of the year, I could not stop thinking about chicken coops. Now, let me preface this by saying I do not own chickens currently. I currently live in an apartment. I do not have any plans to own chickens at any point in the future, but for some reason, chicken coops and chickens were on my brain and would not leave me alone. And so I wrote this whole page based on a couple videos that I watched from a YouTube creator about chicken coops. I did kind of a deep dive into them. I wrote all of this information out, and then my brain let it go because I got it out. For whatever reason, my brain wanted this information and wanted to know that I had this information somewhere. So now that I've got it here, I can easily find it because in the back of my journals, I have an index. So if I ever need to come back and find my chicken coop information, I can find exactly what page this is on. I know where it's at. My brain is happy that that information has been saved. For whatever reason, it wanted it saved. It is now saved, and it can let it go. And for me, illustrates one of the best things about these journals is the ability to take something, get it out of your head, and let it go. So that's my big lesson. It may seem weird to put this whole, I mean, I've got floor plans. I have measurements here. I could tell you exactly how big. I could go build this chicken coop with this drawing tomorrow. I'm not going to. I don't know anybody that's going to, but I could if I needed to. And for my brain, that made it happy. That was enough for me to move on. And so whatever it is that whatever your brain needs to move on from and get things out of your head, that's what those are for. Um, in this case, I have, I got a new pen this day, so I've got this little Esterbrook card that came with the pen and the uh, vinyl that came with the pen, and then I've got some recipes around it. So again, I'm still using this in this way, kind of whatever it needs to be, it is from day to day. And so this is, again, the beginning half of this year, and that brings us to my current journal. Now, I'm not going to go through a lot in this because you have already seen this. You guys have been working with me on this quite a bit. So, here's our current week that we're on, and I am still using a lot of the same tools. So you can tell that I looked back at that this December. Where is it at? You can tell I looked back at this and got inspired, and it made me do this particular standout spread here that keeps the weekend a little bit separate from the week. But I'm basically planning in the same style. I have the washi at the end of the day, like I always have. In this case, I am matching to the washi tape. So, this, the green matches the green on the pumpkin stems. The orange matches the orange of the pumpkins. This gray matches the gray of the clouds. And then the purple is the same as the purple here in this particular washi. So I'm still using the basic same structure, even though I'm no longer working. But back when I was working, I was using that box again that I developed when I used the smaller planner, because it just makes sense to not have to write that over and over and over again. But kind of that same structure again that I've been using all the way along. And then I'm using the back for whatever I need to use it for. So so I swatched some washi. That is going to be up next week, so you can watch me go through and swatch all of these. But I have things like the job application spreads and other swatching, more job applications. I've got some notes here next to this that I took on what to do after you upload a YouTube video. I even have my readathon information in here. So I'm using it very much the same as I always have. I do have my Alistair method again for the tasks as well. So I'm working my way through this journal in the same way that I have before. And then for next year, I do plan to go into a plans by just scribble, and because I do want those dailies again. So one of the things that I really missed was having a page for every single day. And I do like that this doesn't have a lot of information to it. I can do a task list over on the side if I want, but I don't have to. I can do it Hobonichi style, but there's not a lot that I have to cover up if I don't want to do that. But it does give me a page per day, which is something that I really have been missing in that Sterling ink. But again, the vertical spreads, I don't think that I will ever go back to bullet journaling, just because as I've gotten busier and busier and busier, having these spreads all ready to go has been really, really helpful. Having a month that is all ready to go is very, very helpful. In this case, if you look at my December, I already have some things on December. I got tickets to a show in November, and so I have it on the calendar already. I don't have to create this spread ahead of time. you know, it's already there, ready for me to fill in as I go along. And I really, really like that. Um, I've missed that for years, just having a place to put everything. There's always a place to put something when the information comes in. I always have a place to put it. I can even for this, I can put little tasks for the month around the edges. If there's things for the week, I don't do the week until the week it happens. So this was last week. We will be planning this tomorrow. Um, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be done ahead of time because I have any information that I need for next week already in here. And so it doesn't have to live here yet. It can live here until it's ready to be used here. This just keeps me so much better organized than the bullet journals did. With the Alistair method here, I don't have to rewrite all these tasks every day. If I don't do it on the day that I'm supposed to, I can move it to another day. And I don't have to rewrite it. It can just move to another day. So these things, these tools that I've created, I do have to create this every week, but it is much easier to just create this than it is to have to create this whole entire book. This is one thing that I do one time per week. And in this case, I have already gone through when I got the book and made all of those colored lines already. So all I do is when the month happens, I go in and put the black in for the black markings for that month, and I'm ready to go. And so it's so much easier to be in here than it is to be in a bullet journal. It still allows me all of that creative freedom of a bullet journal. If I wanted to on these back pages, I could just bullet journal back here and that would be fine. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be decorative. For me, I find that if it is, I come back to it more often. And I do find that I don't want to put lists back in here as often just because the pages are limited and I don't know how many pages I have left. I mean, I could look at the page numbers because they are all numbered. I could figure out how many pages I have left and how many days there are left in this 6-month period and all of that stuff. But I start to feel a little bit precious about these pages back here, and I stop using them for what I want to use them for. And so that's why I think that I want to go into the something that has a more minimal style like this, but also has those days included. So that is my walkthrough of all of these journals. So if we go, we'll get them all in here. Again, this is a humongous stack of journals, and we go all the way from 2015 all the way to 2025. So this is 10 years of journals. If you made it all the way through this is an hour and a half long. You are an absolute rock star. If you didn't, I will make sure that I split this into some chapters so that you can kind of see what you're interested in and don't necessarily have to sit through all the rest. So I will at least split it up between, Hobonichi, Sterling Ink, and bullet journaling, but I'll try and find a way to make these into chapters that make sense as well. So thank you for joining me so much. I will see you tomorrow morning at 9:30 in the morning for my Plan With Me live. If you feel like joining me live, that's great. If you catch it on the replay, that's also fantastic. I just love sharing all of this with you guys. So Thank you so much for joining me and allowing me the opportunity to show you everything that I've been doing for years and years and years. And hopefully it gives you a little insight into why things have evolved the way they have over the years, and why I have finally settled on the system that I'm currently in and will be using for next year. Um, Hopefully that was pretty clear as we went through all of this. Thanks so much. See you next time. Bye.